they
Thank
give
you.
us this stuff. We try our best to stay on track with it, but I typically blow it up, and Kelsey probably wonders, well, what the hell did I just do this for? But I really do appreciate it, just like you do. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. So it's great to have you on. Well, welcome to the VetEd Podcast. I'm Stephen Herman,
I'm Kale Flaspohler.
and our guest today, Melissa Tompkins from Southern California. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your program.
I'm. It's great to have you on the program, and we met at Vet Partners down in Las Vegas this year, and hit it off. I think it was a good connection and similar thoughts. We sat in the back of the room during one of the talks, and
We did.
had a little round table, and then we ran into each other at WVC quite often. So
A
I
couple
was like,
times.
yeah,
Yep.
we have to connect and learn more about each other. So that's what we're gonna do today. The point of the Veta podcast is to educate, advocate, and inspire. It's for, there's a lot of podcasts out there. We're not here to be say we're better than anyone else. We're just here to give a different kind of viewpoint and a different feel. I'm not from the veterinary industry my whole life, grocery industry. This guy, you came out of school and got put into the veterinary industry.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
No.
you like to farm and hunt and,
Well, construction was probably my
construction.
professional background, I
Yeah.
guess you could say. My whole life,
Yeah.
that's all we ever did as a family growing up. We flipped like 20 or 30 houses. Well,
Yeah.
by the time I was getting to college, so that's all I've known other than this is pretty much construction.
So we're outsider insiders now. And, but, tell us about you, a little bit about what people should know about Melissa.
That's such a loaded question, right? All the secrets. It's ironic you said construction. My husband's actually a commercial plumber, and he prefers new commercial construction. He's done all of it though. He's done residential. He's doing hospitals, and he's done every part of it. But his favorite is to build it from the ground up because it's a lot easier than when there's walls and there's stuff there and you have to get in the mix of it. So when you talk about construction, I always, of course, go to my husband in my brain because he does that all the time. And I see some of the pictures that he shows me. It's crazy. It's nothing to do with my story, but I have to say, I have a lot of mad respect for anyone who has to climb into the spaces that he has to get
Mhm.
into to do
Yeah,
things. Because the pipes, once they're in the wall, like, oh my gosh, like these areas are so tight, it's crazy. So yeah, I have mad respect for anyone in the construction industry because I know how hard it can be. He shares stories. So,
for sure.
but for my story, I know one of the things you guys kind of asked about was like, why did I get into the field or what led me to the field? And
Yeah.
I have to say, like, it was a cat hit by a car in the middle of the road that led me to doing what I do today. It was that incident. She had been hit by a car, and I got her into an emergency hospital, and I stayed calm and did all the things that I could do to help her. And then I ended up adopting her and named her Crash because she was in a car crash. And that was kind of the start, I guess, for my, learning like, wow, maybe I could do this. So, originally wanted to be a vet, but then realized I liked the business and the clients. And now I really have a fondness for team members. I think in the beginning that was a little bit of a struggle because my team was not always easy. But over the years, I really do have a high value for team members and that, building those connections and stuff. So I think that's something that I really enjoy. But yeah, it was my hit by car cat crash that got me into, and she wasn't my cat at the time. She was just a stray, but she became my cat, and that's what led me to where I'm at now. So
Well,
all the
you've held multiple positions in the veterinary practice. Well, tell us about the spots.
So because originally I wanted to be a doctor when I started working in my first practice. I really wanted to work as an assistant and get to do all the technical things. Unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but at that time, my skill set, because I was a little bit older, I was almost 30, and I'd had a life before this field and was a lot of client service. I worked in finance, and so I was really good at talking to people, which not everybody that is in the treatment area is as good at. And that's where my boss says, I don't really want you to be a tech assistant. I want you to work more in the front because you're good with people. So that's kind of where I got directed to. So I did an assistant, but I mostly worked in reception and helping clients and which was a good experience because that's where the money is, honestly. And I don't want to say this in a like of trying to be like uh it's not all about the money, but that's where that comes from. Like those clients are the ones that say yes to treatment. They have to take care of it. So you have to really cultivate a good relationship with them. And I think that's what I really learned in my first positions as an assistant, and then working in reception and kind of growing into that. And then after I graduated, I went, since I decided not to be going to vet school, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just started taking on additional responsibility at my hospital. And then got promoted into the practice manager and kind of went from there. And I never really looked back. When she offered me the promotion, ironically, I had interviewed for a job with a pet insurance company at the time, and they took like a month to get back to me. And so the first day I said yes and started working as the manager. They actually called me and offered me the position in claims as a claims adjuster. And I was like, well, kind of already took another job because it took you guys a month to get back to me. But
I don't think
in
that would
all
have been right
irony,
for you. That one would not have been right for you.
looking at that now, I'm so happy that I didn't go there because if I would have taken that job, I would not do any of the things that I've done since. None of it, because I wouldn't have had any of the management experience at the practice level, which is what I needed to do what I do today. So yeah, it definitely was the right decision. I'm happy that they took the month because it, allowed me to do something different, but it was, definitely the right fit for me. So, and then, that's how I got here.
That's pretty wild how things in life that take us where we are.
Yeah.
Save the cat, not
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
getting a
Save the
call
cat
back for a
and
month for the
yeah,
claims adjuster. But
I know.
with that, you probably thought that probably big company benefits, all the things go along with
Yeah.
it that would seem
Yeah.
really good, right? Eight to
Yeah.
five or something.
Yeah, I just figured that they just weren't, whatever, that they were hiring other people and, that. But, and my first practice was actually, it's a small practice, it was cat only. And I think we had, I want to say 3 doctors at the time. When I left, we had 5. Now they have 8. It's grown a lot since I left there. But, that was a good hospital because they had, as far as benefits for that position, they had everything that I needed, but it was a really good practice. My practice owner was a fair person and, she kind of let me do when she promoted me, she kind of knew that she just wanted to let me deal with it. And so she didn't have to after a while. And it was a really good experience. I got very lucky after talking to other managers over the years, and they're not always as lucky to get to do the things they want to do. So
Yeah,
it's
that's.
definitely.
I think we can get into that. Shoot, I'm about to do my segue to go. Let's talk about that. But no, we still want to talk about your journey and path. And so, let me ask you, what's the order of operation here? The North Orange County Veterinary Hospital Managers Group. And
Yeah, the North Orange County Veterinary Hospital Managers Group, that kind of was originally just one managers group that was in. So Orange County, California is a very big geographically located area.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many hospitals are in that, but there's a lot. I know there's probably at least like 600 or something crazy like that. And so it's a big territory. So over time, as our South Orange County group got bigger, before we were just the Orange County group, then my friend Andrea and I decided to create the North Orange County Managers Group. And so then there became 2. Now we have more than that. I've actually have a new managers group that I created this year with my colleague Missy, and it's the Long Beach area veterinary managers group because it's it's such a big geographically located. And if you have ever been in California traffic, 5 miles in certain areas is not fast. So having more opportunities to go to meetings has been essential. So yeah, it was a big thing for us to create the North Orange County group. And that was back in 2011.
Did
So
that
that was a while ago.
come
So
before South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions?
yeah. Oh yeah. I opened my company in 2018.
Okay.
So yeah, I did the managers group mainly because we wanted to bring, we had 3 or 2 reps that actually approached us, and then a third one kind of came in and said, "Hey, would you guys like to start this group? We can help you buy some sponsorship and pay for food and stuff like that." So Andrea and I, we just earned our CVPM credential, and we thought, yeah, let's do that. Let's see if we can help other managers because we knew some of the struggles that we had experienced, getting management knowledge. And, it's not a position that's usually trained ahead of time. It's usually more on the job and then after the fact. And so we wanted to bring some education to our local area. And so, that was our intention of creating this group. And now it's, 2025, however many years later, it's still going. So, it's been a pretty good success. And then other groups have stemmed off from it too, which is nice.
That's awesome. It's managers, right? Obviously, veterinary
Yeah.
managers. And
Pricers, there's owners. We've
okay.
had a few associates come, but mostly the doctors that come are owners
Okay.
or medical directors, because obviously that role's an essential piece too. And then we've got technicians that come, mostly supervisors or leads, anyone in the leadership realm. And then there are some talks that we've had others. So like sometimes it's a client service, like a CSR reception talk that might be specific to add them or inventory or something like that. But mostly it's going to be someone on the leadership team.
Okay.
That's
How often do they meet?
the each of the managers groups meets well So some of them meet once a month, and then there's a couple that meet like every other month, and then I think there's one that meet quarterly.
Okay.
So there's a little different. The two I'm involved with primarily are every month.
Share groups are important.
Yeah.
They're very important. Kale, what you got over here?
No, I mean, I guess I'm curious in what led you to being in practice versus, starting this new venture.
Well, so I didn't even know about consultants or speakers or any of that till I went to my first AHA conference in 2006. And so I started in the field in 2003, and then I got promoted in 2005. And then I think my practice owner knew that she didn't know enough about management. She knew about finance, as far as like business and stuff like that, but I think she knew she didn't know enough about HR and about all the other things management that she sent me places. And so I was very fortunate that she did that. So I think back in 2006 was when I first met, I shouldn't say met consultants. I didn't know they were consultants at the time, but just they're speaking. They're the ones speaking at the conferences. And that's when I kind of thought, wow, that's really cool, that they get to do that. And really looking at, what they had to bring to the table, educating us on all these different things. And so that's when I first saw it. And then fast forward to, 2018, I decided to make that leap and become a full-time, veterinary management consultant as well. I've been a speaker for more years than that. I think I started speaking in like 2013 or something. Not everybody that speaks is a consultant. There's a lot of people who are in different roles in a hospital that do it. But anyway, so yeah, I think for me, it was just kind of figuring out that I wanted to do a little bit more than being in one hospital will allow me to do. So I decided to open my own company to help multiple hospitals. So instead of just managing one, I manage or help with the management of many. Is kind of my little phrase that I'll say. And it was just the ability to help provide information that people don't know about, like they don't always know what the best way, especially in California, we have a lot of laws here. So they don't know the laws, HR rules. They're not compliant because they don't know what it is. So I think as a management group, that's what we were trying to bring. But as a consultant, I'm able to bring that to the individual hospitals that I work with on a different level than them just coming in and listening to CE for an hour. So that was, I guess, how I got there. So
Yeah. So do you work with the other practice managers primarily in this role, or are you more working with other
it
owners?
depends. It depends on the hospital. So I had my first client who she retired in 2023, sold the hospital. So it's kind of bummed because I really loved working with her, and she was my client for about 5 years. And she didn't have a manager. It was very small, one doctor practice. So I pretty much did all of her practice management stuff. And I'd go once a week and help whatever needed to be done and help. I didn't really do like payroll. That was probably something I didn't do, but I did help with all the hiring. If we had to terminate someone, we had to do evaluations, team meetings. I did all the things for her as basically like her acting practice manager. And so I've done that at that level with when it's just the veterinarian, that there's no other management. And then I've worked with other hospitals that have specialty practice in Northern California. They've got about 50 some employees. They have a leadership team. So I'd work with different people on the leadership team to try to help with, things that they were struggling with. I do a lot of recruiting as part of my business as well. So hiring different positions for the practice, or if a hospital doesn't have a manager, but they're big enough to need one, as a consultant, it's really hard to commit the time that hospitals would need, so then hiring them a practice manager to fill that has been something. I kind of laugh because sometimes I hire myself out of a job because they don't need my consultant anymore when I get them a practice manager, but they're more successful if they have the manager. So I know that that's a good thing to do for them. But yeah, so I guess my consulting is it is like practice management that I'm working with the manager, helping them with things, or I'm working with the owner, or both, or other levels of the leadership team, if they're supervisors or leads. It just depends on the practice.
It makes me laugh about the consultant humor. It's like just create more problems for the practice. Or
I know, right? No, I don't want to do that. I like to help them solve some of their problems and then
yeah.
guide them to, sometimes
Well, I
I
was
can,
joking. I was joking about that.
I know you were. Good.
Yeah.
But because that wouldn't be ethical. And as a member of Vet
Right.
Partner,
As member of Vet Partners, yes, ethics
yeah,
is big.
and BHMA, I'm also ethical. I'm just ethical anyway, but no, I know you're joking, but it is definitely something as a consultant that sometimes, you know, you can't solve all of the problems if they don't want to be part of that solution.
Absolutely.
So that's probably and I know one of your questions you guys had asked about difficulties being a consultant, and that's probably my one biggest struggle or advising, or like I would advise an owner is try to take the guidance that anybody is giving you, if they're an expert in this area, then trying to listen to that, because sometimes they do the opposite or they don't fully take the time to do it. And then they're wondering why it's not, problem's not being solved. And so I can't fix the problem if they're not part of that solution. So
Yeah, help me help you.
exactly. It is, you definitely need to do that. And some owners and managers are great about doing that, and some just need more help and they don't understand that they're not solving. And I think that's probably one of my bigger frustrations. I shouldn't say frustrations, but I'm not always successful because sometimes, my guidance isn't being heeded. I guess I don't know if that's a proper sentence, but that makes it a little bit challenging.
No, you're right. It's what's tough is when someone, it's their practice, it's their baby,
Yeah.
and they do want to do the things.
Mhm.
But as you know, most veterinarians are a little bit risk averse. And so it's like a change, what's it going to do? And it's a
Yeah.
mindset. It takes time. We talk about it. We'll get a client on and, as we go through their onboarding and identifying where we can help most at, I mean, it's pretty simple. We do a quick price analysis and we're like, you're way under the market. You raise your prices to what is acceptable. You would add X to the bottom line. And you're not going to offend but one out of 1,000 people. And that one out of 1,000 people is going to be offended if you don't raise prices. They're going to think you raise prices if you lower prices. And it takes 12 to 18 months sometimes to make them to get, I say make them to get them to take action on that.
Yeah.
It can, and but once they do, it's just building that trust up with somebody. It takes time to build that up to go, okay, Melissa, yeah, knows, we should do what Melissa says to do.
I know. It's just what I say. Just kidding. No, I think it's funny because I know one of the talks I did in Western recently was talking about you usually need to hear like the client needs to hear the message like 4 to 7 times to really believe it. So I talk about that, and so, but it goes kind of the same for the owners and the managers. Sometimes it's like really trusting that that's the right information. We need to hear it repeatedly
Yes.
before we believe in it. And I think that's probably part of the challenge, is just knowing that it needs to be said, maybe in writing, maybe in an email, maybe showing them handouts or whatever it is. Like for clients, it's the same kind of thing.
Hmm.
So you need to repeat yourself a little bit, which I know sometimes for doctors, they get frustrated when the client doesn't want to listen right away. They're like, well, why aren't they listening? I'm the doctor. They should just listen. However, you need to hear the message multiple times to receive it. So
Yeah. Oh, you have to. We're stubborn.
we are.
We have shirts here in Missouri that say "stubborn as a Missouri mule." And hey, this was funny though. Speaking about this, correlates to last night. There's a reel on Instagram. It said ask whole, and the definition was people that continue to ask you for advice but never take it.
Yeah.
Ask whole.
Yeah. I can kind of see that. So
Humor,
yeah.
but we're all the same. We do the same thing, right? We get advice. We go, I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and move on. So that was that question of, yeah, we had, what's a big challenge in helping practice navigate today. So that's definitely a challenge there, is to help them make the change. But what are the big challenges you're seeing out there that you're trying to solve for them?
Oh, yeah, I think probably one of the bigger ones, it's funny because most of the practices are not, for me, they're not reaching out to me asking like a bunch of financial things, which I know, and maybe because I'm not like broadcasting that they should do that. I don't really know. But they're when I review their financials, they're not always very good, but they're not always asking me to do that. So I kind of am trying to tie that into some of my other conversations with them. But the thing that I think I get reached out to the most is when they have a disgruntled team, that they're kind of like, our team is chaos or whatever, like come fix this. And so I think that's a lot harder, and you can't fix that fast, right? That takes a process. There's a lot of communication and conversations you have to have. And I would say a lot of times it's the leadership that is not on par with the team and however they're guiding or whatever they're doing. So I think that's probably one of the bigger things I get, is that the team, is not on the same level. And then a lot of times that stems back to training and what the doctor expects, but doesn't communicate always. So I think there's a lot of the training and communication. I mean, it pretty much communication problems are like 98% of what if I put it down to one thing, that's going to be 98% of what I'm going to deal with a problem in a hospital. It's some form of communication problem, whether it's lack of training, whether it's lack of being polite to each other, if it's toxic or whatever it is, it's almost always boils down to communication.
No question about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's where a lot of the things stem from is a lack of communication. Switching a little bit to one of the bullet points down here below that caught my eye that I'm kind of interested to hear
You're
your.
messing up Kelsey's tongue.
I'm not messing it up. It's on the script. It's on the
It's okay.
script.
We're going to go out of order. It's all good.
So are you creating your own drama? Do you worry about things that haven't happened yet?
I love that talk.
And so it just kind of caught my eye because I think we're all guilty of that, of worrying about things that haven't happened yet and probably aren't going to happen and never will.
You do?
Yep.
Oh yeah, every day.
That's
That's why I'm bald.
Glad-
Yeah. So yeah, it seems. So tell me about that talk and like what is it? What is it that really made you want to give that?
Yeah, you know what's funny is I heard it. Well, that wasn't the premise of the whole talk that I heard it, but I heard that concept many years ago at a VHMA conference. The speaker was talking about that. And it really resonated with me as something that I did. And then I was talking to my team after I got back from that conference and found out that they did it too. And so I think that talk came from that moment. I didn't create it for a few more years, but it's basically helping people understand that the worries and fears that they put into something that hasn't happened, it may or may not actually happen, can lead to all this stress in their lives that is unnecessary. So when I'm not talking about like if someone's in a house fire and you're worrying about if they're going to come out. Like I don't mean that situation when it's real, but when someone hasn't texted you back for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and in your mind you start telling yourself a story, well, why they're mad at me, they don't like me anymore. That's why they're not texting me back. In reality, maybe they're in a meeting for 2 hours or whatever. So I think that I like that talk because I bring up some examples and help people analyze, how many times a day they're doing that. How much stress is that putting on you? And we can talk about acute stress and how that affects you. And then if it's chronic stress, if you're literally in this, like, it kind of can lead to like the anxiety of things too. So like if you're in this cycle every day, multiple times a day, then you're putting this unnecessary stress on yourself, which causes a lot of medical conditions and things. So I love that talk because it really helps people think about things differently. And I think I did the talk at AVMA last year, and I had an attendee come up to me afterwards, and she kind of had a very serious medical condition that she was waiting to find out results on. And she said that my talk allowed her to not worry about those results during that whole conference, the rest of the weekend. She said she felt like she had permission to not worry about it because of my talk. And I thought, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like it kind of, I didn't cry right now, but it did kind of bring tears to my eyes when she told me that, because I thought, wow, you have a medical diagnosis that you're waiting on results on. It's really severe if that's what your diagnosis is, but you don't know yet. So why worry about it in advance? What can you do? All that worrying does is it causes you to lose the joy that you're experiencing right now. And I think Brene Brown has a thing where it's like, it squanders the joy in the moments right now by worrying about things that haven't happened yet, and you don't know if they're going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need those reminders.
Yes.
That's great.
But ask the question.
That's good timing on that. What, Kale, I tell you what, you know what you're doing.
I don't know. I've done this once or twice. No, I'm kidding. No, I think that's awesome because I call it catastrophizing. A lot of my clients do the same thing, where when some minute little situation happens, we take it times 4 or 5 and make it way worse than it's ever going to be, and then assume that may happen and freak out about it. So, no, I think it's a super. It would be very. I would love to hear that talk sometime.
Oh, excellent! I don't have it on my channel. Sorry, I was like, I don't have it on my YouTube channel.
This ties in with what we talked about earlier. It's the what do you wish more clinic owners or managers understood about consulting? Because you went from I didn't know anything about it to I want to do this. So what is that you wish they knew more about?
Well, one, I wish they would call me sooner. A lot of times, when they're reaching out for help, not that it's impossible. It never is impossible unless you don't own the building anymore or whatever. But I think it's calling sooner. I have a new hospital that reached out to me that's building their hospital, and I thought that was amazing that they wanted guidance from the beginning. I just worked at the hospital last year that was brand new, and I was able to help him, which was great. So I think that calling sooner, looking for advice sooner, rather than waiting, thinking that you can fix it, which you probably can, but sometimes I think you need a third party to help guide that fixing and kind of help you see where you're not seeing. One of the things I do as a consultant is I meet with the team when I first come in. So I can sit down with the team and say, hey, what are the things you love about the practice? What are the things that you wish were different? And so I can take that information and then share that in a summary with the owners, which is very valuable because, these are private, confidential conversations as far as who said what in the individual talk, but it allows them to hear from their employees what their employees think about things. And I think a lot of times they think things that are incorrect, things that are better than they are, or maybe worse than they are. So I like that. So I think that having them call me sooner and then being aware of what consulting can do, the options to how they can help different struggles within the practice and things like that.
Yeah, it's like, don't call me when it's on fire. Call me, when there's just a little bit of smoke, or even before it starts smoking would be good.
Yeah, maybe let me be the fireman or the fire extinguisher salesman that I sell you the fire extinguisher
There you
beforehand.
go. I like that. Yeah.
We try.
Exactly. You're not on fire, but hopefully you don't need one of these, but we should talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did buy that fire blanket thing. I kept seeing commercials on like Instagram or whatever for that fire blanket that
Yeah.
puts out the stove fire. And I forget where I was. I was somewhere and it was just there. And I'm like, I'm totally gonna buy this. It was like $20. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy this thing, put it in my kitchen, hope I never need it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, because if I don't buy it now when I see it, something's gonna happen. But this way, I'll make it so that it doesn't happen because I'm prepared. So exactly.
Brings up something to me. You talk about that blanket's $20. Big deal. $20. Do you think that people have a misconception of what consulting is going to cost? And, when
Maybe, or they think that actually don't, you know what? I don't honestly know. I think maybe there is a financial component that they're worried that's going to be really expensive, or they don't know that what is this person going to tell me that I don't already know. And I'll be honest, I mean, I've been in the field for 22 years, but a lot of the hospitals I work with, the owners have been in the field for a long time too. So it's not like they're new, so they do know a lot of things. So I think sometimes they think, well, what is this person going to tell me that I can't do myself, and so I think that's potentially what they say, but I've honestly never asked anybody that question. Maybe I
yeah,
should start asking people that aren't looking, but like, hey, would you ever consider a consultant? Why or why not? That's
yeah,
a good question. Maybe I
yeah.
should ask.
Well, it's interesting. It's as you know, are you really going to tell somebody something new? Or are you going to help guide them to be effective at it, to be a better business operator or manager? Because they've got the ideas and thoughts in their heads. They just need someone to help guide them along that path.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
think that's what I try to do. And I am, what I would say, I don't want to say hands-on, but I guess a hands-on consultant in the sense that I do an evaluation when I first start working with a hospital. And so I'll type up a summary of all the things that I found. And a lot of it'll be like, veterinary medical board related, OSHA related, HR compliance. It's kind of like a compliance evaluation plus other things I do with it. So I'm not just going to give someone a list and say, here's your list. This is what's broken. This is what you need to fix. I want to give them that list and then help them with the fixing. And sometimes, I will do the fixing with the manager or the owner and say, okay, let me help you write this phase training protocol, which I can't do alone in any hospital because I don't know all the systems that they have, right? Like every hospital has somewhat different things. So I can help guide them into getting it created, whereas it might have taken them forever or maybe not at all if they try to do it on their own. So I think that's where I like to be guiding them and helping them complete the goals that they have and get through those things, whether it's me helping them do it or them doing it, or sometimes I might do, it just depends. So I'm a very hands-on consultant. I'm not just a list giver and walk away. And I think that might be part of it. Maybe they don't want to be told that something's wrong. I think sometimes that could be part of why they don't want to see me. I don't know, or talk to a consultant in general.
I think there has to be some honesty there too, and you have to be willing to air out the things that you're not good at or you're not proud of or all those things too. So there's a hurdle that I see people have to
Yeah.
overcome where it's like it's gotten bad enough that I'm willing to tell you these things that I'm embarrassed about in order to help solve them.
That's very true.
That threshold when the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying the same.
Fair
Yeah,
point.
I love that statement. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you create that or did you steal that was
No,
something from
no, it was a jelly roll. There's
Oh,
Jelly Roll talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what they
wow.
say in there.
Okay, well that's pretty good statement.
Yeah, I can't take credit for
I
that
love
for
Jelly
sure.
Roll.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Now asshole, I don't know where that came from. It was just on Instagram. No one asked me where that was
Mhm.
from. Jeez. Tell you what, I thought everybody wanted the quote on that one. I guess it wasn't as good as that one.
It's not.
All right, fine.
Well, I like the Jelly Roll quote. That's very, very fair.
Ask.
Okay, I will ask. Sorry, I was waiting for you to say something. So, I'm always curious about these talks that you're giving, and maybe hopefully I'll get to see one of these at a conference here soon sometime. But setting boundaries and making yourself a priority. How often do you see people being really successful at it that you get to work with?
Successful, not very.
Yeah.
Unsuccessful all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Myself included. I definitely was not good at setting boundaries for myself. And I think that, a couple of my talks, my manager guilt talk, and even that my making stuff up talk involves a lot of the setting boundaries. And I don't want to say self-care as a one-day thing, but self-care regularly, whatever. So I think most anyone, and not even just leadership. So it's every level of the hospital, the person can easily say yes to too many things, take on too many projects, find themselves drowning, and then not ask for help. And that's so common. I would say more people I know have done those things than haven't. So it's a pretty high percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Brene Brown.
I know. I've never read her, but I've listened. So I do a lot of audiobooks. I drive a lot. So I listen to audiobooks mostly. I love to read, but I don't really have the same time. So I absorb it through auditory learning. And I love it. So I listen to her and I like her books because she narrates them. So it's her talking. And she has some great stuff to say. So I've gotten a lot of my inspirational quotes that I put in my talks come from Brene Brown because she's just got such a insightful way of stating the obvious, but then you're like, okay, she's like a neuroscientist or I forget what her degree is in, but so this really smart person saying it in a way that seems like more like a revelation versus what you might have thought on your own. So
Yes.
yeah, really great.
It strikes at you. It strikes a chord that goes,
Yes.
oh.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep,
So
like the revelation.
Jelly Roll, Brene Brown,
Jelly Roll, Brene
they
Brown.
they get the point across, right?
That's right. That's right.
I have one more question about the speaking topics. The employee life cycle. Tell me about that one.
Oh, that's just kind of, I would say it's not like it's just a basic talk, but it's not anything crazy fancy. It's kind of like the recruiting, hiring, onboarding, kind of like the life cycle of an employee, the growth process, they become promoted or, they grow into another position and then, eventually they leave, which is okay because it's okay to grow your employees to a bigger and better role. But it's basically just that life cycle of it's the HR component to things. So.
Gotcha.
I do want to talk about this. People failing boundaries, maybe not taking the help they need. It probably comes a lot from fatigue, and you're a certified compassion fatigue professional.
Yes.
So yeah, talk about that. I think that's a big deal.
So I did a lot of talks in 2020. I had some virtual and some I went into clinic. And so I felt like I was interesting as a lot of other consultants were staying home, not because I don't mean anything negative against them, but because they didn't have the ability to go in. There wasn't conferences that they were maybe doing the big speaking at. And so a lot of the stuff they were doing was all virtual. And I found in my local area, because we have so many hospitals and so people reaching out, I did a ton of compassion fatigue talks during 2020 where I was going into practices and what I do and the way I do this talk, I can't do it this way if I'm at a conference because I don't know who's coming. But if I'm doing the talk at a hospital level, I have surveys that I fill out or that they fill out and they tell me specifically what are the 3 negative things about, being a caregiver, which is what we are in my field. We're caregiving to pets and sometimes even to the clients to an extent. And so we talk about it and they would tell me, sometimes about their days. And I would put what they said literally in my talk. So like the slides, like 10 slides would have just conversations that the team had told me or comments the team made. And I had one talk that I did at a hospital that the technical, whoever put it, I don't know what role or who they were because it's all anonymous, but they put that they didn't have time to use the restroom. But the hospital was so busy. And that's very common. I'm going to tell you, I guarantee you, any veterinary professional can probably say that they've done that multiple times.
Sure.
But this was something that when I said it in the meeting at that hospital, And this presentation, the practice owner had no idea. And unfortunately, practice owners are very, well, fortunately for the hospital, they're very driven, but unfortunately, sometimes their drive, they think everybody else is at that same level and they don't recognize that they're burning their team out by the things that they were doing. So when I did that talk with that hospital specifically, that owner just paused and looked around and he's like, I'm so sorry that you haven't been able to use the bathroom because of what his expectation was.
Mhm.
And so I felt like that I got a lot of good feedback from this talk because of this, but for this specific hospital, it was like a revelation of how this owner could be different with his team. And he's a good guy. Like he wasn't like he was, abusive or neglectful or anything. He just didn't realize what his expectations were doing to them.
Yeah.
So I really did like those conversations. And I probably did it at like 10 or 15 different hospitals. And then I've done it virtually a few times as well. So it's a good way to find out what people are dealing with and how to help them, get through it. So,
Yeah, that's we have some clients that the owners, of course, they produce, a lot. I mean, they're working there a lot, they're producing a lot, and they'll have a hard time hiring another veterinarian. They'll
yeah.
keeping, I should say, because it's not because they're not nice, they're not, but when someone works that much, it's just perception of
Yeah.
I can never match that. Or nor do I want to match that, right? Not that I can, it's like I just don't want to do that. So it's interesting that that's the United States though too, right? It's how much can you squeeze out of the day?
Mhm.
How much can you produce? And so yeah, there's an interesting that's a generational part for sure.
I think it is. And I think that it's, I don't think anybody wants to disappoint. Well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but most people I interact with are not trying to disappoint their boss, but they're also physically affected by it or working this hours or whatever. Or they're, one of my talks I do, I ask like, what are you missing out if you're staying 2 or 3 hours after your shift is over? What are you missing out on in your life? Right. So there's a consequence to this extra work and that they're not able to be with their family or their pets or do whatever it is that they want to do for themselves. And that kind of goes back to that setting boundaries and stuff. But I think a lot of the owners don't recognize. Um, sorry, my cat just on my desk. I don't know if he's
You're
going to.
good. No, you got it.
You're just
We're a veterinary podcast here. We got
I
it
know. I'm like, oh wait, there's a little
fuzzy,
orange
a little
here.
fuzzy.
Yeah, there we go. I knew she was gonna do that. Anyway, okay, don't step on my computer, though, please. I'm distracted by the cat. It's not a Zoom if there's not a cat in it, right? Isn't that the rule?
What's the cat's name? This is not Crash, I'm sure, but
Her name is no, Crash passed away several years ago. This is Gigi. She's my girl orange kitty.
yeah,
Oh,
love
there you go. You don't need to keep going with your tail. Let's turn your butt.
it.
Go
Got
back.
to be on camera. Got to be
She's
part
got
of
it. Like, let me flash myself. Yeah. So,
it.
but I
Well,
think, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, so this is interesting. I was talking to Rob Best yesterday,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he said he's talking to so the guy that created like hotels.com, and he said he had his son, like his 5-year-old son, he brought him to work one day, and his son's like, "What's that over there, Dad?" And he's like, "I don't know." And so he literally emailed people at the company like, "What is this thing?" And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's the book binder, but we don't use it anymore." And can't find out they have a lease on it. Those cost them like 100 grand a year or something crazy like that. They're just sitting there, whatever it was, just sitting there. And so what that is right there too is like as you're running the practice, you're doing the things, you just miss things. And it's like he said, so I guess the question is, do you bring your 5-year-old? If you have a 5-year-old, bring them to work and start asking questions about everything around the practice. Like, what does this do? What is this for?
Yeah,
What's that
yeah.
person doing that? You need someone inquisitive and curious, and a 5-year-old's kind of hard to turn down. Like, get a cute 5-year-old walking around asking the questions no one else will.
I know they'll notice it.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that because I go into a lot of hospitals and um I also do marketing for one of the emergency hospitals I work with. And so I go into even more hospitals through with just the representing the emergency hospital. And I can tell you there's so many hospitals that just are not like one of them I went into, it felt like I was in the mailbox, etc. Like they just had files and papers everywhere. And like I thought, wow, this doesn't even look like a real animal hospital. Like, have they taken a step back and looked at their practice to say, like, hey, maybe we should clean this up a little bit? What messages is sending our clients? So I think it's something that we do need to sometimes take a step back and do. take a look around and say, like, does it smell in our office? Does, things look clean? Is it a fire hazard? Because if the fire department comes in, like,
Shut you down.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of one of those things that you mentioned, thinking about that now. I've noticed that quite a few places where I've gone in just like, huh. But when I'm not a consultant, it's a little harder. If I'm going in representing the emergency hospital, I don't want to be all like negative on them. So
Yeah.
That's what I oftentimes tell people. It's like, go sit in your waiting room for 10 minutes and just look around. That's it.
yes, that's
Do nothing
great.
else, but
Yeah.
just sit there for 10 minutes and observe.
Absorb all the things.
Yep.
Yes. I love it. Does it smell like pee pee? Because that happens in our practices,
Yep. Is there hair on all the seats? Like what's it look like?
They're
Is the
stained.
trim broken?
Yeah, exactly. And there's quite a few hospitals that are like that, and I'm sure other businesses as well. I just really don't pay attention as much to other businesses. So kind of don't notice it.
Absolutely. Well, we were talking about speaking, teaching, growing the profession. Talk about leadership. What leadership qualities do you believe are most important today? And the thing is, like, especially since COVID, because like leadership is changing already, but COVID, we feel just blew it all up.
Yeah. When I was thinking about that, and I actually want to add something hadn't thought about before. I think that being a flexible leader is really important. And I don't know that I really thought about that in this sense, but changing with the times, because most of us say no first and think about it and then maybe come back and say yes. But I think being flexible, good communication is essential, and being somewhat authentic and I don't want to say transparent in the sense of like you don't have to tell your team what your hospital is making, but being transparent with protocols and policies and why they're there. Don't just make it and say it's because I said so, like so that communication, being consistent, holding people accountable, but consistently, not just because this person made you mad, but the other person you're going to let it go. So I think that, being a leader that someone can trust, and, you don't want to be the leader that your actions cause them to have bad days regularly. And I think that's where not everybody thinks about that. And I think having that, going back to like looking at some of the generational or societal things today, things are different today as far as work. I don't want to say work ethics. I don't know that it's not ethic thing, but like the workhorse is no longer a really good, it was never a good thing to aspire to be, but it's even less valued by anyone, not a lot of people today. So like having leaders that value what your team can bring and not expecting them to be like you were, and not saying like, well, when I was whatever, this is how we did it. Well, unfortunately, those things are not as relevant. So being flexible to change, being willing to change, being willing to communicate with your team, being authentic and somewhat transparent with them about why you're doing things. I think those are the things that people kind of follow the leaders that do that. And then when they're fair with consistency. So making sure that you're holding everybody accountable to the same rules for the same reasons, and not, holding one person on a high pedestal and then letting them get away with everything and then other people don't. So I think those are the qualities. I guess that's a few qualities that I would say are important.
Yeah, there's definitely many qualities, but that's like Carol Dweck. I mean, she's going to talk about it. It's when someone gets an A on the test, it's like, do you celebrate the A or the effort that get to that A? It's like there's those things we celebrate the achievement and not the journey along the way and the effort that got put in. And if you get a B, if you give good effort, that's good too. I think that's the part of it. So, yeah, how do
I
you
have
celebrate?
exactly. And I have a degree in animal science. And as a child, science was not my friend. It was always the area of
Nice.
schooling that I didn't do the best in. And so I look back now and I laugh, like I shouldn't have a degree in animal science. I shouldn't have B's in organic chemistry. I should have failed it from my whole history of science throughout the years. So it's like I celebrate that I got a B in organic chemistry. It wasn't an A, but I don't care because I got a B in, more than one class of organic chemistry, which is I had to take, 3/4 worth of it. Plus, I had to take 3 years worth of chemistries. So let's just say we'll leave it there. But yeah, I agree. Celebrate your successes and the effort that you made with them, because
Definitely.
you made the effort and you deserve to celebrate that.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Kale?
Yeah, I was just gonna go do the driving home question.
Oh, we're almost there.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
So
Gonna do my driving home question.
yeah. So
Well, I got some fun questions we throw in though too
all right,
before
good
that
then.
one. So, but no, looking through here, um, managers. I'm just going to end on the agenda part on managers. It's one of the hardest roles to fill in the hospital.
Yeah.
A couple things. One, there's not as many, certified practice managers out there. Number two is that even when you do have a manager, the owner, the business leader still needs to have expectations, what you just said, right? Communication, what's going on. And how do you help out there to see that that manager role can be successful?
Well, it depends on the hospital. It's hard because some owners are great with letting their managers do what they need, and then some owners have a harder time with that. So I think for the manager to be successful, there has to be clear, again, communication every time. Like every answer that I think I wrote communication in because it's so important is the owner and the manager need to talk about, or the medical director and the manager, whoever the two leaders are, they need to talk about the things that are important and having expectations for each other of what the other one wants them to accomplish. I didn't say that right, but if the owner doesn't ever communicate what the manager should be doing or what they expect from the manager and vice versa, then that usually doesn't lead to some success. So I think helping the manager know what their role is, I encourage people to look at becoming a CVPM so that they can get a lot more guidance into what's expected, because just taking the courses and studying for the test teaches you a lot. So things you may or may not have known beforehand. So I think that helping the manager know what's expected of them as the manager's role, and then helping the owner and the manager connect with what that expectation is so they're on the same level. Because I think that's where things go wrong sometimes, is they're just not on the same level. There's an expectation that isn't achievable by one or the other.
Are you seeing more people trying to, I guess I don't know any statistics on CVPM, like people taking the test. Do you know any statistics about increased more people taking it?
Well, there's for sure higher increase since, because it used to be you had to go in person. Like when Andrea and I took it, we had to go in person.
Okay.
We flew to Florida and we took it, and then now it's online. So the year after we took it, they made it online. So there's definitely more accessibility to taking the exam now that it's online, and you can take it like 3 times a year.
Okay.
And definitely more. I think there's a little over 1,000 CVPMs in North America because the certification is offered in the United States and then also in Canada. And so I think there's about like a little over 1,000, maybe 1,034, 11, something like that, between 1,000 and like 1,100.
Okay.
But there's like 30,000 hospitals in the United States. So
Yeah.
if you look at that, having 1,100 is not nearly, where it could be. So I think that I don't know the percentage of increase, but it's not enough. That the certification started in 1992.
Okay.
So it's been,
Been
long
around.
enough.
Been around. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's been around a long time. I think there's been a bigger push over the past 10 years as far as regarding practice management. And there's a lot of people in practice management. Like I have my PHR California, which is an HR certification. There's a lot more managers of HR certifications or MBAs. There's a lot more masters. There's just more managers are more educated today than they were back when I started in the field.
Good. That's great.
Which is great because ultimately pets get better care when the leadership has more experience and then gives guidance to the team. It trickles down. So even though I don't work directly with pets nearly like I did, my influence helps the pet in the end. And that's the whole point of us being in this field, is to help the pets. So
You're helping more pets than you ever could at one practice.
yeah, what's funny is you're right. And especially because I do so many talks to places, and I have a cat friendly handling talk that I've been giving since 2016 when I first did it. And I have probably given that talk to easily 1,000 people. So I think, how many cats have better care because of my contribution. But I get the information from the feline VMA, right? So I didn't make it up. Like I just help, I'm the messenger for the information. That's my
Yeah.
role.
That's great. Oh, we love it. And Kale asked great questions about the talks you've given and all those things. They're wonderful. Keep that up. Keep that going. All right. What's one fun fact people should know about you?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's not, there's so many running through my head. Um, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but I was told by my husband that one of the things he loves about me is that I'm a very genuine person. I am the person that you think when you meet me. I don't have like, I'm not a hidden personality, you know? And I think that maybe, I don't know if that's a fun fact or if that's just a genuine statement, I guess, as I am, very genuine and ethical and honest. And I don't know if that's that much fun, but
I think it's fun to know.
how about a fun one? Okay, one that's really random is I did perform in the 1984 Olympics. I
Really?
performed on the field at Dodger Stadium. So yes, I was in the Olympics technically.
Like the openings part, was that or what?
No, it was and between two of the games. It was like Cuba and somebody I can't remember. You're like the halftime show or something for the games. I don't remember which game. Well, I have pictures of me to prove I was there, but and actually I performed I twirled baton for many years and I also did clog dancing. So I've actually performed at SeaWorld, Dodger Stadium, Disneyland, California Adventure, Knott's Berry Farm, the Staples Center. So I performed in some manner on a bunch of different event center platforms. So
Oh, that's awesome.
I know that's more random. It's more fun than my genuineness. So
That one's yeah, the genuineness is great to know, but that's more fun.
yeah, it's more fun.
All right, if you got a billboard out there, uh, what would you want the people looking for your services to know? What's on that billboard?
Oh, let me be the key to your solutions. That's my little statement. It doesn't exactly make sense as a sentence, but I like it.
Cool.
Uh, I want to help hospitals, so I want to help them with whatever they're struggling, whether it's, client communication or training or team member communication or restructuring, whether they have inventory struggles or, anything under the practice management umbrella, I like to help with. Are they struggling for recruiting? I do a lot of recruiting and I've successfully recruited many doctors now,
Oh,
which has been great. It's a really great sense of accomplishment because it's not easy to do. So yeah, so I think those would be the services that I would want them to know they can reach out and trust my knowledge and that'll guide them in the best way I think I can.
awesome. Kale, you get your question.
Okay. Yeah, you seemed like you were gonna ask me something. No. So we like to end these by there's always something that you wanted to say like 30 minutes after after it's over and you're driving home, or in this case maybe not, but like you're going home and it's like, man, I wish I would have said that. And so now's your opportunity to say whatever that thing is.
Oh, I don't know. Gosh, see, you get your questions when they're not work related and they're personal, I don't know what to say, right? Which is weird because I normally don't have a problem talking to anyone.
It could be work or personal. This one could be work or
Yeah.
personal.
Well, what's funny is at not Vets for, I'm sorry, Vet Partners, I wanted to share about my fun fact about my performing at all the different stadiums and I forgot. So I could say that now. I did say that. So I don't, regret not saying it because I said it today. So uh I don't know. I have 4 cats and 2 dogs and a husband and a stepson. So I don't know. That's something I didn't tell you yet, but that's kind of my family.
That's
So
awesome.
oh, I have a fish too. I forgot.
What kind of fish?
He's a Picostomus. I
Okay.
used to have a cichlid, but he passed away. And so now it's just Donnie in there in his tank, and he's kind of boring because he doesn't really do anything.
This hangs around.
Yeah, my cichlid was more engaging. He would actually, I didn't know fish did this, but he actually moved his house or like the plants, he would move them around the tank, which was hilarious because he would like give himself privacy and move it in front of the opening of the little house he had. So, but the cichlid was fun, but the Picostomus, he just kind of floats. So
That's awesome.
not as exciting.
No, they're fun. That's fun to watch. It's fun to see what they've done too. Like you come back and like you said, things are moved.
Oh, when Bob was in there, he was hilarious because there was stuff always in a different spot. And I'm like, how is that happening? And then we realized that he was doing that. So
ah, yeah, it surprises you for sure.
yeah.
We appreciate you being on the VetEd podcast today, Melissa. And if anybody wants to check you out, go to South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions.com, correct?
Yes, that is my website. And then my Instagram is at South Coast Vet Solutions, as is my Facebook. And then my YouTube channel is under South Coast Veterinary Manage 263, or you can look up my whole name, South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions.
Awesome.
I also have a LinkedIn, which is under my name, Melissa Tompkins Lewis, and then also under South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions. So,
Well, it's been a lot of fun today. I think we could talk for hours. A lot of good things to talk about in the veterinary space. We'll have to do it again. And maybe next time we'll get the cat ears, you never know.
I know I'm
Oh,
not Completely crazy.
If we are we're all crazy. Come on, it's a crazy world. Crazy lives out there. Crazy's in us. So it's all good. We just have fun. So, well, hey, great to have you on today. And we'll wrap it up with, hey, if you like what we're doing, subscribe to our channel. If you have suggestions about what you want to hear us, check us out on social media at the Better Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, on LinkedIn. Message us. Let us know what you think we could add to make this the best it can be. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Peace and blessings.